Hello, welcome back to Fallout 76. As you might have guessed from the thumbnail, I think I've run across an extremely serious bug involving the Ghoul transformation and perks. I've done a bit of testing, and with every character that I've turned into a Ghoul after the first day, they've all had issues with perks after the transformation. So this seems to be a very serious issue involving Ghoul transformation. But at the same time, because I've only done limited testing, I can't rule out this affecting every single new character. Because when I created these characters to turn into ghouls, I deliberately avoided doing anything with perks. The reason being that, when you turn into a ghoul, that makes new perks available, so I deliberately didn't do anything with perks while I was leveling up these characters from 20 to 50. So this may be affecting non-ghoul characters as well, but I can't prove it either way. But before we dive into all the details, let me give a shout out to everybody who helped out by joining expeditions or letting me join expeditions or just helping out. But let me specifically shout out Rage2048 for being a massive Giga Chad. They explicitly joined a few of the expeditions that I was soloing just for the purpose of coming in and auto-axing all the enemies, especially the bosses, which was very helpful. I have to say that they most definitely live up to the title of helpful teammate. So thumbs up to you, Giga Chad. So what am I talking about? When you go into the perks menu, you have the possibility of picking a perk. So basically you go into the menu and you can filter perks by attribute and select one of them to pick. That guarantees that you get that perk. But your level also determines which perks you can choose from. So in other words, perks have minimal levels, and only after you hit that level or you go beyond it can you choose that perk. Right now we're looking at the available perks for a freshly minted ghoul character at level 51. It might not be obvious, but there are missing perks here. I think I've determined what the issue is, but I also have to go into what I've seen throughout my testing in order to properly explain how I'm coming to this conclusion. When the Ghoul transformation first released, I had 3 characters total. I had my main character, level 2000 something. I had a secondary character, Honest Abe. He was around level 150, but that's based off my memory and I'm not entirely sure at all at this point. Unfortunately I didn't record it, so that's purely based on memory and I'm not really certain about that. But I think that's about right, 150 sounds about right. I also had a freshly minted character that was around level 50, just ready to turn into a ghoul. My main character I transformed immediately. Now this character didn't seem to be affected at all, and I've had no problems playing as a ghoul. So she may have been affected, or she may not have been. It's impossible to tell. Now with the second character, Honest Abe, he was around level 150 like I said before. And when I turned him into a ghoul, one of the things I noticed immediately was that I could not pick from some of the new ghoul perks. They were just not available. So I made a ticket with customer support and unfortunately the response basically boiled down to put in a bug report. Now one of the differences between my main character and this character is that when I tried to turn Honest Abe into a ghoul, I got a disconnect. Just a single one. The second time I went into the cave and transformed, that worked. But like I was saying, the ghoul perks were not showing up. At this stage I thought that this was related to the disconnects. I played around with the crippled ghoul version of Honest Abe for a couple of days, but everything seemed to be okay. Basically, glow worked correctly, all the perks that ghouls get by default worked correctly. Everything about the ghoul system seemed to be okay, except that I couldn't pick the new ghoul perks from the perk picker. Then after that, I tried my level 50 character that I created specifically to turn into a low level ghoul. I met Layman, we went up to the cave, then down to Emmett Mountain, then back up, and finally I converted. But I ran into more disconnects than should ever happen. The first time, the door to the missile was closed, so I went out, came back in. The second time I got a disconnected from server, just as I was transforming. Same thing happened the third time. So I thought that maybe I was standing too far back and we needed more radiation quicker. So I went closer. For those of you keeping count, that's the 4th time this failed. Then the next time the door was closed and I got disconnected from the server. Then, because it seemed that the issue was that I was getting too much radiation too quickly, I stayed as far back as possible. But after respawning, I tried to get back into the bunker and finally, it looks like the transformation worked. I went through the whole process of making myself nice and pretty for you folks, and I ran into the same problem. None of the Ghoul perks showed up in the pickable perks list at all. Just for the record, there is a Ghoul perk that should show up at level 50. Most of them do have a level requirement, so as you level up, you should get access to new Ghoul perks, but there are some that you should be able to access pretty quickly. So for example, you do get radiation power at level 50 by default, but I should also be able to pick it, but that's not the case. Same with the legendary perks. The two new ones for Ghouls show up, but they're locked. And the same goes for Action Ghoul. So if you turn a character into a Ghoul at level 50, you should be able to pick from two perks, Radiation Power and Action Ghoul. Those two should be available to every single Ghoul, but they are not. At that stage I'm thinking that this obviously has something to do with the disconnects, especially with the new level 50 character getting so many disconnects and bugs. That has to have played a part in this, right? So I made a fourth character. I power leveled them all the way up to level 50 once again, with the help of a lot of people who joined expeditions and allowed me to join their expeditions. Took a few hours, but we got to level 50. I got a single disconnect and exactly the same behavior. One of the reasons I haven't talked about this up to now is because I knew there was a hotfix down the road. So I was kind of hoping that that would fix the issues, but at the same time I didn't hold too much hope, because when I looked at the bug tracker in Discord, I didn't see the bug that I was seeing. I wasn't seeing any bug report that corresponded to the behavior that I was seeing. So it looks like I may be the only one who's really digging into this. I wasn't going to make another character, but after the hotfix I kind of ended up doing it. With fingers crossed and everything like that, I made the final Ghoul. This guy lured me into a workshop and he killed my brand new character. He kind of disappeared, so I didn't notice him taking over the workshop. I would have got the hint if I saw him, but I think he was deliberately crouching or something like that. So he killed a new character. Well done, buddy. I had a whole heap of junk for you to take. Lol. And then he had the goal to send me a friend request. Yeah, right. But in any case, with the help of a lot of Giga Chads, I made it back to level 50. And this time we got no disconnects. So it does look like the hotfix helps with the disconnect issues, but this is based on a single character conversion, so it may well be the case that I got lucky, but fingers crossed, I'm hoping that the hotfix did help in that regard. What it didn't help with though was the bug. When I go into the perk picker with this character that never experienced a disconnect, I am seeing the same exact issue. But then I also noticed something else while going through this list. A lot of the normal perks are also not showing up. But let's backtrack for a bit. Let's go back to my Honest Abe character. If you remember, I turned him into a Ghoul at around level 150 or so. But after seeing that the Ghoul perks were not gonna show up, I kind of gave up on being a proper Ghoul and just played the character. Not sure why, I just felt like doing it. But what happened is that as I leveled, I noticed that some Ghoul perks started to show up. Not all of them, but some of them. And then when I looked at which perks were showing up, I noticed that they were the ones that had the lower level requirements. This is after I went up a few more levels, and you can see that the strength perks are all there, except for the one that requires you to be level 100. Same with perception. There's a perk that requires you to be level 100, and it's not there. Endurance shows you all 4 perks that you can pick, because the highest one is glowing out at level 80. And that repeats for Charisma, but when you get to Intelligence, Science Monster is not there, because it requires level 100. And that pattern repeats under Agility, where Hyper Reflexes is not showing up. And the same goes under Luck. Glowing Criticals is not there, but everything below that is. So there's a clear pattern at play. At this stage, Honest Abe was level 222, which was around 70 or 80 levels after becoming a Ghoul. So essentially, this pattern was telling me that the Ghoul level requirements were being counted from the time I became a Ghoul. So then I went up around 20 or so levels, and the level 100 Ghoul perks showed up. At this point, Honest Abe is around level 340 something after doing a few raids and being carried there, and all the Ghoul perks are there. So it looks like for some reason the Ghoul conversion counts your level as being from the point you turn into a Ghoul, at least as far as the perk requirements go. But then I also noticed another thing. If you look at the perks from my newly converted characters at level 50 or 51, some of the normal perks are also not there. So this was a separate issue. For Honest Abe, the Ghoul perks were not showing up, but all the normal perks were showing up. But for these new characters, two of which were created before the hotfix, and the last Ghoul character was created after the hotfix and never experienced the disconnect. For all of those three level 50 characters, the normal perks were not showing up properly. They may have been there before the hotfix, but I wasn't paying attention to that, so this may be a side effect of the hotfix itself. But basically, after going through the entire list of normal perks, and seeing which ones show up and which ones do not for these three characters, it looks like the level requirements are counting whatever your level is minus 30. So in other words, my level 51 character is counting as being level 21 as far as which perks I can pick. A pretty big hint is that two perks are marked as new, and if you look at the level requirements, they're both 21. So that's Blocker and Adamantium Skeleton. But just to confirm that, there is a perk under Perception called Fortune Finder, which requires level 22, and lo and behold, it's not there. So it seems fairly clear that for the purposes of the perk picker, the game is counting our current level minus 30. I don't understand why, but that seems to be the case. So all the perks that require level above 21 are not there, and all the perks that require 21 or under are there. That seems to be quite consistent. I have no idea why my level is being reduced by 30 specifically, but that it is happening seems fairly clear. And I'm pretty sure that if I went up another 30 levels with any of these characters and got up to say level 80 plus, a lot of these perks would start showing up. I went up to level 56 with one of my characters, and the Ghoul perk that should show up at level 55 wasn't there, but I was also not seeing Fortune Finder. You would think that if I went up to level 56 and it was reducing my perk requirement level by 30, I should see perks like Fortune Finder, which requires level 22, but that's not happening. So for some reason it seems that converting to a Ghoul basically freezes your level as far as perk requirements go. I haven't tested this, but I think that if I went up to level 80 something, I think this would reset the issue and the perks would start showing up again. But like I said before, I have not confirmed this. It would take me a fair while to get 30 levels up, and I think that the devs are better equipped to do this than I am, so I'll leave it in their hands. But as far as I can see, it seems pretty obvious that for some reason the Ghoul conversion has significant issues with the perk requirements. And just for the sake of completeness, I have not been able to fully confirm either way whether opening a pack is also affected by this, but I would think that it would be. Because when you open up a pack, you should get cards from the perks that you can't pick. So the pack openings and the perk picker should be drawing from the same pool of available cards. And which cards are available is the issue at play. So I think that pack opening would be just as affected. Once again, the devs would be better equipped to confirm this, so I'll leave it in their hands. And just to go back to the beginning, I have not been able to confirm whether new characters that are not Ghouls are affected by this. Because like I said, I did not pick any perks while I was leveling up. That was a deliberate choice, but it also means that I can't tell you if the normal perks were available at those levels. Again, that's something that the devs can confirm faster than I can. But I think that what we can conclusively say is that Ghoul characters after the conversion are most definitely not seeing all the perks that they should. This is after the hotfix, so maybe the hotfix changed some things and caused another issue. I think this issue is basically game breaking when it comes to the Ghoul conversion. It may also affect new characters after the hotfix, but at the very least there is a critical issue when it comes to low level characters converting to Ghouls. This is especially pressing because there is an option in the Atom store to level up your new character from level 20 to level 50 by paying atoms. And if you want to do multiple conversions to and from a Ghoul, that involves paying 1000 atoms. So that's real money there. So essentially, there is a scenario where somebody creates a new character, comes out of the vault at level 20, pays atoms to bring them up to level 50, then tries to convert to a Ghoul, and the perks are not there. They may choose to go back to human, but then if they want to try to become a Ghoul again with the same character, then they have to pay atoms for that privilege. That's not exactly a rare scenario, so you're essentially getting into a situation where people are being asked to pay money, and the system may well bug out. This is not just a gameplay issue, this is actually a monetary issue, and it's serious enough that frankly I think it needs to be addressed ASAP. In any case, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for listening all the way through, and have a great day.